All right, good afternoon. Hate to interrupt everybody's conversations. Y'all look like you're being very productive and happy and all that. So welcome to full general laws. Clerk, if you can open the roll for attendance. All right, clerk, close the roll. So we do have a quorum present. We've got 15 bills before us today. We are going to start, because I know we've got some folks who are still trapped over there presenting their bills in the Senate, and I want to give everybody a chance to get over here for our first bill dealing with cannabis. But we'll start with our uncontested report from House ABC Gaming Subcommittee with Chairman Krizik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The ABC Gaming Subcommittee report, we have a block of 5 bills that were uncontested, 4 of which were rolled into my bill, which creates a new license. And those 4 were SB 180, SB 400, SB 657, and SB 724. Essentially, SB 657 is my bill. That's Senator Reeves' bill, and that is the new license for performing arts facility.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, I think the idea is that we need to move the committee substitute for the aforementioned bills.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, Chairman Krizik.
And then the 5th bill in the block that was uncontested is Senator Evans' posting of illegal gaming tip line information. And that has there's no substitute or any amendment to that. And
Okay. Does any member of the committee have any questions or comments about Senate Bill 397? If not, do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to report Senate Bill 397. Clerk, open the roll.
I know in the whole block.
Oh, actually, no, we're going to do the block. All right, so, Mr. Chairman, I think that leaves us Senate Bill 657, if you want to describe that one.
I did it, but just to make it clear, so what we're doing is we've got, in this uncontested block, we have 4 bills that have been rolled into essentially what is 657, Senator Reeves' bill, which creates a mixed beverage performing arts facility license for wine and beer, defines performing arts facility and standardized the eligibility criteria for annual mixed beverage as well, and it would be, I think it's 500 seats, and they could be permanent or similar. And that's those 4 bills together, and then there's Senator Evans' bill, which is the one I mentioned on the tip line. So I move, the subcommittee moves the block of uncontested as amended.
Mr. Chairman, we also need to adopt the substitute for Senate Bill 657, if I get a motion.
Move to adopt the substitute.
They're all substituted to.
Move to do it again.
Yep. So let me, before you do the substitute, let me make it clear that everything has a substitute, the same substitute, which is 657, and except for this Eben bill, the 397. That's what makes it confusing, because it's
Mr. Chair, I think if I...
Do you want to pull that out of the block and just do the block of
No.
4?
I think what happened is I think that the chairman may have been afraid to kill a whole bunch of Senate bills, and so rather than do that, we're passing a whole bunch of bills that are all exactly the same with the exact same substitute. Am I right about that?
Yep. No, thank you, Delegate Simon. That's correct. We are conforming a whole bunch of them.
Let me just say I wasn't fear.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a substitute to Senator Reeves's bill that we needed to adopt, but it sounds like we're in good shape. All right, is there a motion to adopt the block?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All right, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That block of bills reports 19-0. All right, Chair Carr, if you could go through your subcommittee, and I believe that they are all uncontested, except that we are going to be pulling Senate Bill 415 out of the block, and we'll address that separately at the end of your report.
So we'll, Mr. Chairman, we'll address all of the other bills first and put them in a block.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, first we had SB 36, which was the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, discussed definitions, and the committee had a substitute. We made it the same as the House version, and so I moved the substitute.
All right, do I got a second? All right, all those in favor of the substitute, say aye. All those opposed, the substitute's properly before us. Chair Carr.
Then we had SB 204 by Senator Diggs, again, Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and this is about release of criminal investigative files. And this was reported out, and so move.
Second.
Okay, Chair Carr.
The third one is HB 215, Senator Perry, FOIA issue, removal of Virginia residence requirement for access to certain criminal investigative files. This one was reported out. The subcommittee recommended reporting 8-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, Chair Carr.
And SB 260 by Senator DeSteph, again, the Public Procurement Act, giving a preference for Virginia residents, but we put a substitute on that, and it's going to be United States preference. And so we reported the substitute 8-0.
All right.
So move.
All right, we properly moved the substitute. I have a second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, all right, the substitute is properly before us. Chair Carr.
And again, SB 324, Senator Rome, Virginia Freedom of Information Act, charges, dealt with charges for production of public records. So the subcommittee recommended that, reporting 8-0, and I so move.
All right, and Chair Carr, my understanding is that it came over from the Senate with a reenactment clause, and it continues to have one, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, Chair Carr.
And then SB 340, Senator Salim, Virginia Freedom of Information Act, exclusions from mandatory disclosure concerning the purchase card statement. And this is kind of a repeat of something we'd had before, and we just making that certain. And so again, this was reported from the subcommittee 8-0, and I so move.
All right.
And I would move, since all of these are in the block, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we pass the, accept these and move them forward in the block.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded that we adopt report the block. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. Those bills report 19-0. And if we could go at ease for one moment.
Mr. Chairman, this also was reported 8-0, but I understand we're going to continue that for a year.
All right, Delegate Simon.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that meeting in person. I had some questions that I wanted to get asked, and I may get answers that are satisfactory about whether this bill is necessary or whether it might have some unintended consequences. But rather than slow it down too much, what I would like to do is, if it's the pleasure of the committee, is to add an amendment to put a reenactment clause on it. Keep it moving forward. If I get the answers to the right questions, we could take that off, on the floor or anywhere through the process. But this just allow it to go back and forth if we need to get some more questions answered. So I would move that we amend Senate Bill 415 to add a reenactment clause.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any comments, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we have Senate Bill 415 as amended before us. All right, do we have a motion on Senate Bill 415? All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to report with amendment. Clerk, open the roll. All right, that bill reports with amendment 19-0. All right, we will go at ease for one moment. All right, thank you. Calling back to order. Chairman Krizik, if you want to take up your 2 remaining bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 628, patroned by Senator Aird, amends the list of cities that are eligible to host a casino by replacing Richmond with Petersburg. Is the senator here?
No.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I should go to the other bill, or? No, it's
No,
okay,
go ahead.
okay. All right, the bill was amended in subcommittee. I move the amendments.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
And the subcommittee recommended, as amended, reporting by a vote of 6-1, and I so move.
All right. Delegate Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that this amendment adds a delay on this bill, and I wanted to see if I could get the patron to answer that question. I understand she's not here, so maybe you can help answer. And I think Senator Reeves is in the audience for another bill, but he had a similar bill to this one as well. We're just trying to figure out why there was a delay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Wiley. The reason why we have the delayed enactment clause in there, because it's actually doing 2 things, right? And so we had Delegate Carr's bill that removed Richmond from the list of eligible host cities. And that, I think, came through almost unanimously, if not unanimously. With respect to whether you transfer it from Richmond to Petersburg, there wasn't quite as much unanimity, and so the fact that they're tied together makes that a little bit more complicated. And so just to be able to slow the train down a little bit and get into conference, Delegate or Senator Aird was okay with getting a reenactment clause so that we could put it into that posture.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any additional questions? All right. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded to report with amendments. Clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with amendment 16-4. Chairman Krizik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 658, patroned by Senator Reeves, adjusts the 48-hour time limit special agents conducting investigations for ABC have to submit their findings so that Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays are not included. The subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of 6-1, and I so move.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Does any member of the committee have any questions or comments on Senate Bill 658? Seeing none, clerk, open the roll. All right, clerk, close the roll. That bill reports 21-0. All right, thank you, Chairman Krizik. And I think that brings us back to our one bill that was not heard in subcommittee, which is Senator Rouse's Senate Bill 448. Senator Rouse is not here, but I believe, Chairman Krizik, you are going to be presenting the bill on his behalf. What I'll tell everybody is this is the bill that establishes a framework for retail cannabis, and this is a big deal. We typically do not hear these kind of bills directly in full general laws, but because it is a revenue bill, we needed to be able to get it out of committee and out onto the House floor. And so the first thing we need to do, because the version that we've seen before, the parties have all been working on that, so we do have a substitute. So can we get a motion to approve the substitute?
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the substitute is properly before us. So we are going to have Delegate Krizik explain what the substitute does. And then I know that we've got some folks out there who want to make some brief remarks on either side. So we'll do that. And I think each side knows not to repeat themselves and to make them as succinct as possible. So I don't think we'll need to put on time frames, but if you just be mindful of the fact that it's the afternoon. Chairman Krizik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank Senator Rouse for his hard work with me to bridge the gap between our two bills, Senate Bill 448 and my House Bill 698, which will be heard tomorrow morning in the Senate rehab. And I wish to speak in support of the substitute. After these bills passed their respective bodies, Senator Rouse and I went to work immediately with the stakeholders to harmonize them. Fortunately, there was already many major areas of agreement, such as public safety, public health, enforcement, local land use, referendum, and regulatory oversight. And so they've been out there. Many of you have had an opportunity, and I know everybody is here on the committee has read those bills over the last few weeks. Senator Rouse and I came to a quick agreement on a 9% tax. So that's the tax on this is on retail marijuana, 4.5% for the locals, 4.5% for the general fund products to keep prices low and reduce the cost advantage of illegal products. Next, we took up the 3 policy areas where the bills differed. Thanks to creative and diligent efforts, the bills are now aligned with respect to those issues, which were 1, timing for the market, 2, the canopy size and how it's characterized, and 3, what we kind of call equity. Here's what we did. In terms of timing, applications for testing, cultivation, processing, retail, and transporter licenses, they will all be accepted by the CCA on September 1, 2024. Once people receive those licenses, they may start preparing for the opening of the retail market on May 1, 2025. This retail start date will be the same for everyone. On canopy, we will use square footage as the measurement, not number of plants. And we will provide a variety of options for both large and small cultivators. We will also allow outdoor grow on a limited basis for the small growers. On equity, there will be a micro-business support program overseen by the Cannabis Control Authority. The program will be funded by 100% of the licensing fees collected by the authority in that first year. After that time, the program will be supported by 60% of the tax revenue from retail sales of marijuana. Also, there will be license preferences for micro-businesses. These preferences, which will be race neutral, will offer significant economic opportunities for those economically disadvantaged persons, including persons who've suffered hardship or loss due to this country's war on marijuana. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, Senator Rouse and I are happy to report that the Senate and House are on the cusp of sending the governor legislation which will create a retail marijuana market in a very responsible and thoughtful way. And we have to do this because we've got to do something about that $3 billion illicit market. It's time to give Virginians access to a safe, tested, and taxed product. And I thank Senator Rouse, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and everybody, all the stakeholders who worked on this final product.
All right. Thank you very much, Delegate Krizik. Does any member of the committee have questions of Delegate Krizik on this bill? All right. Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Greg Habib from Gentry Lock here on behalf of the Virginia Cannabis Association. I want to make a couple of substantive comments and then talk about how we got where we are. Let's be clear what this bill does not do. This bill doesn't legalize marijuana in Virginia. That's already happened. This bill does not create a market for cannabis in Virginia. We already have a $3 billion market for cannabis in Virginia. This bill regulates the existing market to ensure that all sellers are licensed, all products are tested, and all sales are taxed. That's what this bill does. If you don't like marijuana, you shouldn't want drug dealers on the street selling unlicensed, untested products. So that's what this bill does. Then process-wise, Mr. Chairman, yourself, Subcommittee Chairman Delegate Krizik, Senator Rouse, Chairman Favola have put an extraordinary amount of work, not just to advance this bill, but to advance what is essentially a conference report, a consensus bill on one of the hardest issues we'll see all year, and we've done it 2 weeks before the General Assembly adjourns. Why is that important? We've all had the situation where a massive conference report that never went through committees, that the public never saw, shows up on the floor on the last day of session, and you have to vote on that. Mr. Chairman, by doing it this way, this bill will go through this committee. It will go through the Rehab Committee in the Senate. It's going to go to Senate Finance. It will be heard on the floor. This is the most transparent way possible to pass a bill like this. So at the risk of blowing too much smoke at you all up here, I'm thrilled that we are able to do it this way. I'll blow just a little bit more smoke. David May, et cetera, they all need a pay raise. You all know that. But again, this is the fair way to do it. There's equal access. This takes care of small businesses. It takes care of Virginia farmers. It makes sure that the protections are in place in the market so that it's properly regulated. And again, it doesn't legalize marijuana. That already happened. It doesn't create a market. It simply regulates it. We hope you act favorably on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Hicks Wise, and I'm the Executive Director of Marijuana Justice. We are in support of this bill because it directly supports those that have been impacted by marijuana enforcement in the past. We're really excited to be able to come to a consensus and thank all the parties for their hard work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Alexander McCauley, representing Jushi, the Northern Virginia medical cannabis provider. We are in full support of Senator Rouse's substitute. It's a little amazing, as has been observed, that we have a consensus at this stage of the session. While the bill recognizes the key role that the medical cannabis companies have to play in standing up the market, it provides a level playing field for the other market participants. We're very grateful to Paul Krizek for his hard work on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I also want to echo the preceding speakers. I'm Susan Gaston. I represent Purely Appalachia, which is a network of small business owners and entrepreneurs in Southwest Virginia. We've been working on this issue with Delegate Krizek, with Senator Rouse, really now for quite some time, and the consensus that we have reached and achieved across all lines has been very, very beneficial to the overall issue. I know that our ladies and gentlemen in Southwest Virginia are excited as to where we are. We would not be here without the leadership of Delegate Krizek and the others who've been working tirelessly on this issue. Thank you so much, and I hope that you all will support the bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Philip Thompson with Cannabis Equity Consultants. I want to appreciate Delegate Krizek's work on this. When the bills first came over, there was some distance in between them, but now we've closed that distance. One of the big areas we closed distance on is potentially minority participation and equity, which is a very important element for us to ensure that people who have been impacted will receive an opportunity to get into this market, but most importantly also, we've changed the numbers of how much money goes to the reinvestment fund, so we should see significantly additional investment go to the minority community, which has been impacted. So we're in full support of this bill. Thank you.
C.J. Jordan, Virginia Hemp Industry and Coalition. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, the gentle ladies of this committee. You have worked extremely hard. Even though we did not get what we want on industrial hemp, we are supporting our cousins in this effort. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the measure? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tom Antorcio, and I'm with the Virginia Catholic Conference, and I'm also here representing Virginians evaluating drug legislation. And we oppose this substitute primarily for reasons that I think I've stated before, chiefly on the health front. We've seen and we've talked about, and I know this committee's probably had some familiarity with that already, the mental health effects, the fact that we are currently in a mental health crisis as it applies to youth in our Commonwealth. We don't have enough counselors. We're dealing with the aftermath of the pandemic and the impact that had. And so this, we believe, would just compound the mental health crisis that is currently confronting the Commonwealth. And then in addition to that, it's been said by the proponents of the bill that that taxing and regulating the market will, fix things in Virginia. And that's just not borne out, unfortunately, as much as we would like to see that, I'm sure, develop the way it's been projected. It's just not happening in other states that are moving forward with full-fledged commercialization. And the best example right now, there's just a number of states, but Maine is probably the one that's most in the news. Maine has commercialized, and their entire congressional delegation, in fact, a bipartisan group of 50 members of Congress have sent a letter to Merrick Garland. They just sent one to Attorney General Merrick Garland on February the 2nd, asking for a DOJ investigation into the illicit market in Maine and other states like California, Idaho, there's just a number of states, Oregon, that are having these problems. Oklahoma is another one. They're having problems because of transnational criminal organizations, TCOs, that leverage financial support from the cartels and China involvement. And so it's a national security issue as well as a health issue. And what I'd like to do is just present to you the letter that was submitted by 50 members of Congress to Honorable Merrick Garland. I have a number of copies here, and I'll go one. And then finally, another example is the Denver District Attorney, Mitch Morrissey, back in 2016 wrote a letter to the state of California. The state of California had some questions about Denver's experience, Colorado's experience, and he pointed out that crime has gone up dramatically in the state because of commercialization. And just finally, again, back to the taxing and regulating point, that seems to be the main argument for it, is that Maine has a $4 billion illicit market currently. They're a commercial market, and they have $4 billion in illicit sales. So most states, in fact, I don't know of a single state, and I've not heard of one, that is doing better in terms of the regulated market after commercializing. So it's really not been an effective model. And I would please ask you to take that into consideration and also just what that looks like fiscally going forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Todd Gackey on behalf of the Family Foundation. And I've spoken before, several subcommittees and full committees on this issue, talking about all the data that we've talked about. But I think that one of the more meaningful conversations I've had was recently with a pastor friend who runs an addiction ministry here in Richmond. And he ministers to those that are homeless on the streets, whose lives have been destroyed because of drug addiction, all beginning with marijuana. And he told me that his ministry will be busting at the seams because we first legalized marijuana, and now we're planning to commercialize it and put a marijuana pot shop simply on every street corner. I have kids. Yeah, I have kids, and I don't want them to be around this. It's not fair to them. And it's not fair to these ministries that are helping these men and women overcome these addictions to save their families and save their lives. So I understand where this bill is going. I see the direction it's heading, but I think we need to consider the long-term effects. There was an article out of the Arizona Republic. I've quoted it before. The title of it simply reads, "We were fools to believe we could legalize marijuana or commercialize it. The rush to legalize pot was loaded with serious unintended consequences that we've only just begun to understand." Let's not let Virginia become like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, back to the committee. Does any member have any questions or comments? Delegate Coiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. I'll take one at a time. If that's
Very
okay.
good, Delegate Coiner.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at lines 730 through 734 and just making sure I understand. So before this section, it goes through the referendum process that you can choose. So if a locality says, yes, we are going to allow the sale, then in this section, it seems to me, though, you still cannot adopt any ordinance or resolution. I understand the prohibition, but the regulation, I guess my question is, does that mean you cannot pick and choose within what areas of your zoning ordinance? Like if you have a commercial zoned area versus a residential zoned area, or if you have rules about distances from schools, that none of that can be regulated?
Delegate Krizik.
I would defer to council, but no, that's not the case. There's language in here that allows for the local zoning. Perhaps
Council?
Mr. Chair. Yeah, so they are allowed to basically regulate, localities would be allowed to regulate businesses like they're able to regulate any other business. What they can't do is say, you can't possess marijuana in our county because it's a statewide issue. They can't prohibit someone from having it in their car and driving through the county because that wouldn't really be practical given our set of rules that we have. But what we do say is, and this would be in subsection C, so 738 to 740 hits to the point of where you are allowed to enforce your local ordinances and regulate businesses, including your zoning and your land use requirements.
Delegate Quainer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess, and this is the area of law I practice in every day, is interpretation of ordinances for zoning. And I'm not sure that it's clear to me that C allows you, for example, to, like in my county, we passed an ordinance that doesn't allow vape shops, so many of them within a certain distance of one another and within a certain distance of a school. That was the decision that was made and voted on. I'm not sure that A and C combined could get me to that same result if I wanted to say only you couldn't be within a certain distance of a school. I don't think that A says I cannot regulate the sale or advertising or dispensing. I think C simply says it doesn't stop me from regulating like other businesses, but what if I want to put an elevated restriction on them? That's my concern, Mr. Chair.
Council?
Mr. Chair, Delegate Corner. So, I mean, if there's an appetite to make it more specific, I think that we could do that. What the intent is and what I read the language to say is that you're really not supposed to treat marijuana business licensee differently than any other business. So however you're allowed to regulate businesses, that's how you would be allowed to regulate these types of businesses. If you wanted to, specifically call out, how close they could be located to a school or anything like that, we could do something like that. But the intent of this language was to say that your zoning and your land use requirements are fine, as long as you're enforcing those and using them like you would on any other business.
Delegate Quainer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean no harm to the bill in discussing this section. I just think maybe as we proceed that folks may want to look at amending this section because in my practice in this area of the law about what is and is not allowed in certain zoning districts, I think it's problematic for those practicing. I do have another question, Mr.
Delegate
Chair.
Quainer.
Mr. Chair, I was also trying to find within the bill if there was a section in regards to funding coming out of the taxes collected and or any information about education in our schools or funds put in for education about the risks associated with use. I didn't know if that was in the bill. I was flipping through trying to locate it.
Council?
Mr. Chair, Delegate Corner. So to answer the first part of the question, 4.1-614 is going to explain where the tax revenue generated from sales is going to go. And it provides that 10% is going to go to pre-K programs for at-risk 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. That's what was targeted with the funds as opposed to all public ed. There's also 25% is going to DBHDS for community services boards for the purpose of substance use disorder prevention and treatment programs. Additional 5% is going to be going to public health programs, including public awareness campaigns that are designed to prevent drug driving, discourage consumption by underage, and inform the public of the potential risks of cannabis use. Does that answer the question?
Delegate Quainer.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Quainer.
My preference would be that if we're not going to say that there's a percent of funding associated with it, that we do look at modifying at least our health curriculum in our schools to address this. I see where we're dedicating money to support early childhood, which is great, and public awareness campaigns, but we have a captivated audience of middle school and high school students who are required to sit in school and listen to us. And I think it's a great opportunity where we have them in front of us. And I feel like it was in some version a few years ago of one of these versions of the bills. So it would be my hope that at some point in the process we see that come back.
Delegate Coiner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one other point, I don't see it in here. I had mentioned earlier I wanted to get to yes on this. I am really hoping that we end up with a way that we protect our communities from illicit market that's out there. But my fear I don't see in this version where we dedicated a certain amount of funds for our police to enforce going after the illicit market. So that's the last point. I didn't see it in here. I'd love to see it so I can get into a better posture to be a yes on this. That's my last comment that I did not see, Mr. Chair.
Council?
Mr. Chair, Delegate Corner. Yeah, so there's not a specific allocation of revenue from the tax revenue generated, but like that you can see on its face of Section 614. But the way that 614 would operate would be that before that money is paid out to these various causes, money goes to support the authority. And the authority, like the ABC authority, would have special agents with law enforcement powers to go out and enforce the provisions of this. So that money, before it even was divvied out to any of these causes, would be going, at least in part, to fund the CCA's law enforcement division.
Delegate Coiner?
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Coiner. Any other member of the committee have questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, we operate by motion.
Move to report.
All right. It's been moved to report and seconded. Clerk, open the roll. With the substitute. All right. Clerk, close the roll. That bill reports with substitute 12-10. Mr. Clerk, do we have anything else before us today? All right, so that closes our business for today. Appreciate everybody's patience on this afternoon. The fun is just beginning, folks. So we've got Housing Subcommittee immediately afterwards, and then we've got Professions and Occupations. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, committee.